Hello and welcome back to Define. Today's video is a definitive guide on how we can assess our competency level. From the previous videos you would have understood about the 4 levels of competency framework. The unconscious incompetence, second level is the conscious incompetence, then comes the conscious competence, and finally the unconscious competence. In this video, we will be looking at specifically the reading skills at each stages of these competency model. In the unconscious incompetence stage, you are unaware of your reading deficiencies and strategies required for success. Errors occur frequently and you don't realize why. In the second stage, you recognize your reading weaknesses and start understanding why your answers are incorrect, but fixing them requires significant effort. In the third stage, which is conscious competence stage, you can perform well by consciously applying reading strategies, but it still requires focus, and maintaining accuracy takes effort. In the final stage, the unconscious competence level, reading and answering questions becomes second nature. You apply strategies and infer meaning effortlessly, and you rarely make mistakes. The signs that you are at the first stage, the unconscious incompetence level, is that you lack awareness of reading strategy. People in this stage don't realize that there are specific strategies like skimming or scanning that are crucial for the OET reading tasks. Next sign we'll be discussing is the inability to identify the key information. People in this stage often miss crucial parts of the text, assuming that their understanding is complete. Let's take an example. Imagine you are reading a medical article about chronic back pain for the OET reading part B. The text discusses different treatments such as physical therapy, pain management, and surgical interventions. Now, looking at the text and the question, it's possible that you choose the answer as A, surgical interventions, because you remember seeing the word surgery in the passage. In a stressful environment, you might just skim past or roughly read it and figure out, okay, that's the answer. In any such cases, you missed out the part where it clearly states physical therapy is the first line of treatment. Errors like these are very common at this stage of competency. Let's look at the next one. People who are overconfident generally tend to believe that their reading comprehension is good, even when they consistently answer questions incorrectly. This has a few reasons behind it. There's a cognitive bias called as the Dunning-Kruger effect, which occurs when individuals with low ability in a particular area overestimate their competence. The overconfidence could also be because of the lack of feedback or misinterpretation of feedback. For example, if feedback isn't clear about why their answer is wrong, they may assume that their incorrect answers are due to minor errors or just bad luck, rather than a fundamental lack of comprehension. Another reason why there is overconfidence could be the habitual or familiarity with certain question types. In cases where learners have practiced with the same types of questions multiple times, they may develop a false sense of confidence. They might believe they are doing well because the format feels familiar, even though they aren't fully understanding the material. This can happen when someone focuses too much on recognizing patterns in questions or answers rather than truly comprehending the reading material. The final reason we'll be discussing about overconfidence is the emotional or motivational factors behind it. Sometimes learners develop a belief that they are good at reading comprehension because acknowledging the need for improvement can be emotionally challenging, and accepting that they may be struggling can trigger feelings of frustration or failure. And in order to avoid these negative emotions, they might maintain the belief that they are performing well, even if the results suggest otherwise. The next sign that a person is in the first stage is that they misinterpret questions. In this stage, they are unaware that they are misinterpreting the questions and therefore provide the incorrect answers. There are again several factors behind this as well. One of the major reasons is the cognitive load and the time pressure. There's a mental fatigue associated with long examinations, especially in the latter parts where mental fatigue can set in. When tired, people are more likely to misinterpret questions because their cognitive resources are depleted, leading to less focus on details and more reliance on shortcuts or guessing. This misinterpretation of questions could also be because of inadequate familiarity with exam formats as well. Misinterpreting can also arise from not being familiar with the types of questions asked in OET. If a learner hasn't practiced enough multiple choice questions or inference-based questions, they may not fully understand how these are structured, which eventually leads to misinterpretation. Sometimes learners don't grasp what type of information the question is trying to elicit. For instance, a question might be asking for an inference, but the learner treats it as if it's asking for factual recall, leading to an incorrect or an irrelevant answer. High levels of anxiety during the exam can impair focus and attention, leading learners to misinterpret the question. Generally, when stressed, the brain tends to focus on information that feels familiar or easy to process, sometimes at the expense of understanding the question in its entirety. This is applicable to all human beings. Anxiety can also cause someone to rush through the questions out of fear of running out of time, especially in time-bound examinations like OET and IELTS, which also causes them to miss key aspects or interpret it too narrowly. Now, overthinking and second-guessing is also another reason. Some learners might overthink straightforward questions and misinterpret them by adding complexity that isn't even there. For example, they might assume a question is trickier than it is and start searching for hidden meanings that lead them away from the correct answer. After reading the question and selecting the answer, learners might also second-guess themselves, leading to confusion and the potential for misinterpretation again. The final sign we'll be discussing for the first level of competency is the poor understanding of the test structure. Learners may not realize the importance of understanding how texts are structured, especially in the more complex, medically focused parts of the reading test. The second stage is conscious incompetence. At this stage, the learner begins to realize that they are missing key details in the texts, but they still are struggling to fix this. They may also understand that they fall for distractors in multiple choice questions, but they yet can't avoid them consistently. Distractors are incorrect answer options that are designed to seem plausible. Recognizing these distractors is a critical skill in exams like the OET. But learners often struggle to avoid them consistently, especially if they haven't developed strong test-taking strategies. Here's an example. Go through the passage. While the answer is B, antibiotics, the others are distractors. The reasons are given here as well. The point of a distractor is to make sure that the candidate is not easily able to guess the answer, but is actually understanding the question and the passage and then answering the question. If you are in the second level of competency, you may also notice that reading every word is not an effective strategy, but you would also struggle to implement better techniques like skimming and scanning. Learners here also realize that they struggle with inference questions and can now identify when they are missing the implied meaning of a passage. Learners at this stage also begin to actively search for reading strategies and tips but still find applying them challenging, which is part of the learning journey. At the third stage of competence, the learner now consciously applies skimming, scanning, and detailed reading techniques. They are aware of when to slow down and focus on specific sections. They also showcase improved time management, where they are able to manage their time better, dividing it between reading the texts and answering questions. Though it requires effort to maintain focus at this stage of their competence. Recognizing the purpose of questions is another sign that the learner is in the third stage. So they begin to understand the type of information each question is asking for and adjust their reading approach accordingly. So the learners begin to understand the type of information, for example, factual, inference, or contextual information each question is asking for, and adjust their reading approach accordingly. At this stage, they can also easily identify and avoid distractors in multiple choice questions, though they still have to concentrate hard to do so. They can correctly use inferences as well. Learners can infer meaning from context, but this also requires concentration, and the learners may second guess themselves occasionally. Finally, let's look at the fourth stage of the competency, which is the unconscious competence. Certain signs that you are at this stage is that you automatically use techniques like skimming, scanning, and detailed reading without needing to think about them. Oh, okay, I need to apply skimming here. Oh, I need to apply scanning here. Things like that. You would automatically know when to apply these methods based on the question type. You are also able to instinctively pace yourself and manage your time well during the reading section, completing tasks with time to review. The learner in this stage can consistently choose the correct answers, spotting distractors easily and interpreting the text accurately even with complex information. They are also confident and comfortable with inference-based questions and accurately infer meanings from the text. They also have mastery over medical texts. They understand medical passages effortlessly and can accurately analyze both explicit and implicit meanings. At this stage, while doing a time-based practice tests, the learners naturally skim the passage, quickly identify the relevant parts, and confidently answer the questions. They feel comfortable with the complexity of the text and don't need to second guess their answers. That brings us to the end of this video session. Before you leave, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.